Nobody from my family came to my graduation. Not my husband, not my kids. The seats I reserved for them front row with their names printed on glossy cards stayed empty like a cruel joke. When the dean whispered, "Would you like us to move those chairs?" my throat locked. I smiled instead, because I already knew where they were, not stuck in traffic, not busy with work. They had chosen to be somewhere else raising a toast at a party I wasn't invited to. And in that silence with the diploma heavy in my hand, I decided calmly, coldly, that they would get exactly what they deserved. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The applause around me swelled like thunder, but it wasn't for me. It was for the young woman who had just crossed the stage before me, her family screaming her name like she was a rock star. Balloons bobbed in the air. A poster board with her face painted in glitter shook wildly above the crowd. I stood up when my row was called. My knees felt heavier than the black gown I wore. The tassel brushed my cheek as I leaned forward, clutching the rolled diploma cover with both hands. From the corner of my eye, the empty chairs glared back at me, two seats marked "Reserved Daniel Thompson" and "Reserved Emily and Josh Thompson." My husband, my daughter, my son. They were supposed to be here. I told myself not to look again, but I couldn't stop. My eyes kept darting back like a tongue that won't leave a chipped tooth alone, and every time the emptiness screamed louder. The dean nudged me softly. "Claire Thompson," he announced into the microphone. For a moment the sound of my name felt foreign, like it belonged to someone braver. I walked across the stage. The spotlights blinded me, but not enough to erase what wasn't there, the silhouettes of the people who should have stood, clapped, smiled. Instead, the silence followed me down the steps. After the ceremony, I lingered by the fountain outside the auditorium. Students clustered with their families, snapping photos. Mothers fixed mortar boards on their daughters' heads. Fathers wrapped arms around sons in brand new ties. And me, I adjusted my gown alone. Smoothed the wrinkles from the fabric like I was brushing dust off a relic no one wanted to see. A woman approached, clutching a bouquet of roses. She was maybe in her 50s, her daughter a fellow graduate beaming at her side. She glanced at the three empty chairs still visible through the glass doors behind me. "Oh, honey," she said gently, "your family couldn't make it." Her kindness was a knife. I forced a smile. They had other plans. "Oh," she said softly as if she understood. But she didn't. She couldn't. I walked away before she could ask more. The truth was, I knew exactly where they were. That morning when I left the house in my cap and gown, Daniel barely looked up from his phone. Emily, my 17-year-old, asked if I'd left money for the catering bill. Josh, only 14, shrugged when I asked if he was coming. Then the text came just before my name was called. A picture, a long banquet table, silver balloons spelling out congratulations, glasses raised. My sister-in-law is smiling into the camera. And at the center, Daniel, my husband, is holding a champagne flute. The caption, "So proud of this family milestone." But the milestone wasn't mine. It was theirs. They were celebrating my niece's acceptance into college. At my expense. Literally. I had written the check for the catering deposit months ago, thinking it was for Emily's birthday. And so as I crossed the stage, they were toasting under fairy lights strung across my sister-in-law's backyard. Not a thought spared for me. When I reached my car, the silence inside felt like a coffin. I set the diploma on the passenger seat and stared at it. The paper gleamed under the late afternoon sun, the gold seal winking like it knew something I didn't. This piece of paper had taken me 10 years of night classes, early mornings, babysitters, and part-time jobs. I had studied in parked cars during soccer practice, written essays while chicken casseroles baked in the oven, and highlighted textbooks by the glow of a nightlight after tucking my kids into bed. Every corner of this diploma was etched with sacrifice, and yet to them, it meant nothing. I drove home slower than usual, letting the stoplights hold me longer, as if they were giving me time to breathe. But inside, something else was happening. Something cold, steady, deliberate. I replayed the image of those empty chairs, over and over. Each time it hurt less and hardened more. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the pain had calcified into resolve. Daniel was already home. I could hear laughter spilling out from the back patio. My daughter's shrill voice. My son chuckles. The clinking of glasses. I didn't walk toward them. Instead, I slipped inside, quietly hung my gown on the back of the bedroom door, and set the diploma on the dresser. The house smelled of barbecue, charcoal smoke, and sweet sauce. My contribution, though, I hadn't been invited. I'd paid for the groceries, for the drinks, for the decorations that fluttered now in the warm summer air. I pressed my palm against the diploma. Its edges bit into my skin. For once, I didn't cry. I listened. Every laugh, every cheer outside layered into a wall between me and them. And I knew this wall wasn't going to crumble. Hours later, when the voices outside died down and the house finally quieted, I stood at the kitchen sink washing a single wine glass I hadn't used. The window above the sink was cracked open. A breeze carried the faint echo of someone saying, "She'll get over it. She always does." My hand froze around the glass. That was Daniel's voice. And in that moment, I realized something. They expected me to swallow this, to smile, to forgive, to fade into the background. But not this time. I dried the glass slowly, placed it upside down on the rack, and turned off the light. The kitchen sank into darkness, but inside me something had just switched on. A quiet fire. From the outside, nothing had changed. I was still Claire, the mother who drove carpool, the wife who signed checks, the woman who carried burdens quietly. But inside, a plan was forming. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to demand apologies that would never come. All I needed was time. And I had just earned the one thing they never wanted me to have: independence. This degree wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a weapon, and I intended to use it. That night, I slipped the diploma into a folder, tucked it into my desk drawer, and sat in the dark for a long time. I thought about the years I'd been told I was just a mom, just a wife, just someone to cook, clean, pay, and endure. But tonight, the silence told me a different story. I was no longer just anything. I was Claire Thompson, and my family had just made the biggest mistake of their lives, because they showed me exactly how invisible I was to them. And I decided calmly, coldly, they would feel that same invisibility one day. They would get exactly what they deserved. The diploma sat on my dresser that night, its gold seal glinting even in the dark. Every time I passed by, it caught the light, mocking me, daring me. To anyone else, it was a symbol of achievement. To me, it was proof. Proof that I had carried the weight of everyone's doubt on my back and still made it here, alone. I touched the edge with my fingertips. The paper was smooth, but the memories it carried were jagged. One touch, and I was pulled backward years, even decades. I was 18 again, sitting cross-legged on the floor of my childhood bedroom. My acceptance letter to the state university was spread open across the quilt. I remember tracing the words with my finger. "We are pleased to offer you admission." My chest burned with hope. I ran to the kitchen, waving the letter in the air. "Mom. Dad. I got in." My father didn't even look up from the bills he was sorting. "And how exactly are you planning to pay for that, Claire?" I froze. My mother's voice came next, sharper than the clink of her coffee spoon against the mug. "College is fine for people who can afford to waste time. You need to be practical, get a job, help the family." The letter slipped from my hands. But I thought my mother cut me off. "Dreams don't put food on the table. You're not like your cousin Stephanie. Her parents can cover tuition. We can't." That was it. End of discussion. The memories shifted like film burning in a projector. Suddenly, I was 21, wearing a white dress, standing beside Daniel at the courthouse. He was tall, charming, and so sure of himself. "You don't need a degree," he whispered as he slid the ring onto my finger. "You've got me. I'll take care of us." At the time, it sounded like security. Now it feels like a cage disguised as a promise. I blinked back into the present, standing in my bedroom with the diploma glowing in the dark. My throat tightened. That promise had chained me for years. But the memories didn't stop. They tumbled one after another. I was 25, cradling baby Emily in my arms, rocking her to sleep at 3 in the morning. My textbook lay open on the nightstand, pages wrinkled from spilled formula. Daniel walked in shirt half buttoned, smelling like late-night drinks. He glanced at the book and smirked. "Still trying to play college girl Claire, just face it, you're a mom now. You don't need all that." I didn't answer. My lips brushed Emily's forehead instead, but inside something wilted. I was 30, standing at the kitchen counter balancing a checkbook. Bills were stacked like bricks around me. Daniel leaned over my shoulder, sighing. "Why do you keep talking about finishing your degree? Do you think anyone's going to hire a woman your age with kids?" His words landed heavier than the bills. And then Emily, only 12 at the time, repeated them a week later when I reminded her to do her homework. "Why, Mom? It's not like you finished college." My daughter said it casually, like she was parroting something she'd overheard, but it pierced me anyway. Back in my bedroom, I sank onto the edge of the bed. My fingers clenched the diploma as if it were the rope keeping me from drowning. It hit me then: the empty chairs at graduation weren't a new betrayal. They were just the final act of a story that had been written a long time ago. One summer afternoon replayed in my mind. Emily was 13, Josh 10. I had signed up for an online course. I sat at the dining table, laptop open, determined. Emily walked past, rolling her eyes. "Dad says you're wasting your time. Shouldn't you be making dinner?" Josh laughed. "Yeah, Dad says you just want to pretend you're smart." I swallowed hard, staring at the screen as my children mocked me with Daniel's words. That night, when I confronted him, he shrugged. "They're kids, Claire. Don't take it so seriously." But I knew better. Children don't invent cruelty. They inherit it. The pacing of my memories slowed, stretching like a long, painful note. I could feel the thread connecting every slight, every dismissal, leading straight to those glossy cards on the front row chairs. It wasn't just that they didn't show up. It was that they never believed I was worth showing up for. I remembered the night before the graduation ceremony. I had laid out my cap and gown across the bed. The fabric gleamed in the lamplight. "Do you think the kids will be proud of me tomorrow?" I asked Daniel softly. He didn't look up from his phone. "Don't pressure them. They've got their own lives." That was his answer. No congratulations, no pride, just dismissal. And then there was the morning itself. I had come downstairs, gown zipped, tassel pinned. Emily was pouring cereal. Josh was scrolling through his phone. "Big day," I said brightly, forcing cheer. Daniel grabbed his keys. Yeah. By the way, remember to leave a check for your sister's party caterer." That was it. No hug, no good luck, no picture on the porch like other families. Just a bill. In my bedroom, hours after the ceremony, I pressed the diploma flat against my chest. The gold seal was cold, but inside me, something burned. I finally saw it clearly. My family had never underestimated me by accident. They had done it deliberately. It was easier for them to keep me small, silent, useful. Because a Claire with no degree, no independence was predictable, manageable, convenient. But now things had shifted. The sound of laughter drifted through the window again. Daniel's voice smooth as always. "She'll get over it." My jaw tightened. This time I whispered back, though no one could hear me. "No, I won't." I stood and placed the diploma carefully back in the drawer. Then I noticed something tucked underneath an old notebook. The cover was bent, the spiral rusted. I opened it. Inside were notes from my very first night class nearly 10 years ago. Scribbles of ideas, essays, and highlighted lines about resilience. And at the bottom of one page, in handwriting slanted from exhaustion, a single line. "Someday they'll see me." I traced the faded ink with my finger. The younger me had written that as a plea, but now I read it as a prophecy. The pacing in my chest shifted. no longer slow and mournful. It quickened, steady, deliberate. This wasn't just about earning a degree anymore. This was about rewriting the story they'd forced me into. They thought I would accept invisibility. But they were wrong. I had been invisible long enough. I closed the notebook and stood taller than I had in years. For the first time, I didn't feel like the woman behind the empty chairs. I felt like the woman holding the pen. And if I were holding the pen, then the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The morning after graduation, I woke before anyone else. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy like it's daring you to break it. I padded into the kitchen, poured a cup of coffee, and sat at the table with my laptop. The diploma sat nearby, still in its leather folder. Every time my eyes landed on it, I felt the same jolt, a reminder, a weapon, a secret. I lifted the laptop lid. The screen glowed, washing my face in pale light. For years, I'd used this computer for recipes, grocery lists, and school permission slips. Today, it was going to be for something else. I told myself I wasn't plotting. I was simply looking. But deep down, I knew better. The first thing I checked was our joint bank account. Rows of numbers blinked back at me. And there it was, the catering charge. Thousands of dollars were drained, listed under my sister-in-law's name. My jaw tightened. I scrolled further. More charges. Golf club dinners. Hotel bookings. I whispered to myself, so this is where we've been bleeding. For years, Daniel had told me we couldn't afford luxuries, new shoes for Emily, braces for Josh, or even the occasional dinner out. And I had believed him. I had cut corners, clipped coupons, stretched meals from scraps. But the account told a different story. It told the story of a man who lived well, while telling his family they had to live small. The pacing of my breath shifted, slow, deliberate. Each click revealed more. Emails, receipts, invitations to fundraisers that were just parties. One subject line caught my eye. Congratulations, dinner hosted by the Thompsons. I opened it. There in bold, paid by Claire Thompson. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even known about the event yet. My name was stamped on it like I'd signed the invitation. I closed the laptop for a moment, pressing the lid shut as though I could crush the evidence inside. But when I opened it again, I felt something shift. The fear was gone. In its place, a strange calm. A memory rose uninvited. Years ago, I had sat across from Daniel at this same table explaining how I wanted to take a certification course. He had laughed. Why, so you can pretend to be one of those career women, Claire, be serious. This house is your career. I had let the words settle over me, then shrinking under them like a plant deprived of light. But now, staring at the glowing screen, I thought, not anymore. The coffee had gone cold when I opened a new tab. Job postings. With my degree, doors that had always been locked were suddenly ajar. Entry-level positions, mid-level ones, and even fellowships for women returning to the workforce. Each listing felt like oxygen. Then an email notification pinged. From Dr. Margaret Lewis. Subject: Congratulations, Claire. I froze. Dr. Lewis had been my academic advisor, the one who had encouraged me through every late assignment and every extension I had begged for after a sick child or a broken-down car. I opened it. Claire. You've proven more resilient than most of the students half your age. I hope you know this degree isn't just a piece of paper. It's leverage. Use it. Let me know if you'd like me to connect you with some colleagues in your field. I read the email 3 times. Leverage. The word thrummed in my chest like a heartbeat. I typed back, hands trembling but steadying as I went, "Thank you, Dr. Lewis. I'd like that connection." And with one click, something in me realigned. It was the smallest action. An email. But it felt like cracking a door in a room I hadn't realized was locked. Later that day, Daniel came into the kitchen jingling his keys. "You left the light on," he said flatly, glancing at the open laptop. I closed it slowly. "Did I?" He poured himself coffee, his tone casual. "By the way, that catering turned out great, didn't it?" The words slammed into me. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't explaining. He was bragging. I forced my voice steady. "Yes." Great. He smiled faintly. Good thing we had the funds. My knuckles whitened around the coffee cup. He didn't notice. He never did. When he left, I whispered to the empty kitchen, "You just gave me all the proof I need." That evening, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hello?" A voice answered. "It's Claire," I said softly. A pause. Then warmth flooded the line. "Claire. My God, it's been forever. How are you?" It was Andrea, an old coworker from the bookstore where I'd worked part-time during my 20s. She had gone on to a stable career in publishing something I had always admired. I hesitated, then spoke. "I need advice." The pacing shifted again, steady escalation. This wasn't reminiscing. This was the start of strategy. Andrea listened as I explained my graduation, the empty chairs, the party. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then she said, "Claire, you've put everyone else first for so long. Maybe it's time you start building something that's just yours." Her words echoed Dr. Lewis's. Leverage, build, use it. Andrea continued, "I can introduce you to someone in HR at my company. We're always looking for resilient candidates. You'd fit." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. "Thank you," I whispered. When the call ended, I sat in the dark, the only sound the faint hum of the fridge. For the first time in years, I felt the current shift. Not in their favor. In mine. The twist came the next morning. I logged back into the bank account to transfer a small sum into my personal savings. Barely anything, but enough to start separating my life from his. Then I saw it. Another charge. This one recent. A hotel room booked downtown. The date. The night of my graduation. My chest tightened. So while I had walked across the stage, Daniel hadn't just been raising toasts in a backyard. He had spent part of the night elsewhere, with who I didn't know. Not yet. But the seed had been planted. I closed the laptop softly this time. No anger, no tears, just resolve. The house stirred awake, Emily banging drawers upstairs, Josh thudding down the stairs two at a time. Normal chaos. But inside me, nothing was normal anymore. I poured coffee into a travel mug, slid the diploma into my bag, and headed out the door. The morning air was crisp, biting, but it felt clean, like it was scouring me raw so I could start over. As I walked to the car, my phone buzzed. A new email. From Andrea. Subject: HR contact. Let's get you started. I looked back at the house, the same walls that had kept me contained, the same door Daniel always walked through without seeing me. And for the first time I thought, this house may not always be mine, but my life will be. That thought carried me into the driver's seat. I turned the key, the engine rumbling beneath me. The sound was steady, strong, alive, and for the first time in decades, so was I. The first time I carried the diploma outside the house, it felt like contraband. I slipped it into my bag as though Daniel might confiscate it if he saw. My fingers tightened on the leather folder, the gold seal pressing into my palm through the fabric. That morning I wasn't going to the grocery store. I wasn't running errands for anyone else. I was going to meet someone who knew a version of me that Daniel had worked hard to erase. Andrea had invited me to a cafe downtown. It was small, tucked between a laundromat and a florist, the kind of place Daniel would never set foot in, which made it perfect. When I walked in, the smell of espresso and warm bread wrapped around me. People typed on laptops. Voices murmured softly, spoons clinking against ceramic cups. It felt alive, like possibility itself. Andrea was already there, waving from a corner table. She hadn't changed much, same confident smile, same spark in her eyes. "Claire," she exclaimed, standing to hug me. "Look at you graduate." I almost laughed at the word. Graduate. It sounded foreign in her mouth, as if she were describing someone else. "Thanks," I said softly, sliding into the seat. We talked first about little things, her job, my kids, the weather. But she didn't let it stay light for long. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Claire, I know you. You didn't call me just to reminisce. What's going on? I hesitated, then told her everything. The empty chairs, the party, the catering bill, the hotel booking I'd found in the bank statements. Her face hardened as I spoke. Claire, she said finally, that's not just disrespect, that's deception. I stared at my coffee, swirling the foam with my spoon. I don't even know where to begin. Andrea placed her hand gently on mine. You begin by not pretending anymore. The pacing quickened inside me. My heart thudded, as though every word she said was a drumbeat. She pulled out her phone, tapped quickly, then slid it across the table. This is my friend Rachel, HR manager at a mid-size publishing company. They're hiring. With your degree, you could start immediately. I stared at the contact information glowing on the screen. It was like someone had opened a door I'd been pressing against for years, only to realize it was never locked. Then came the twist. Andrea hesitated. Claire, I need to tell you something. I debated saying this, but if we're being honest, she lowered her voice further. Daniel came into the store where I used to work. About a year ago. He was with a woman. He introduced her as a colleague, but it didn't feel like that. My stomach flipped. Andrea's eyes were steady. I didn't say anything then because I didn't know the full story. But now it fits, doesn't it? I gripped the edge of the table, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Do you remember her name? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. Andrea shook her head. Just that she was younger. Blonde. She laughed at everything he said. For a moment the cafe noise faded. All I could hear was the echo of Daniel's voice from the night of the graduation party. She'll get over it. She always does. Not this time. Andrea reached across again. Claire, you don't have to carry this alone. Let me help you. I'll connect you with Rachel, and if you need a place to talk things through, I'm here. I managed a small smile. Thank you. We stood to leave. The bell above the cafe door jingled as we stepped outside. The city felt louder now, traffic rumbling, a bus hissing to a stop, voices echoing off buildings. But inside, I felt a different kind of noise resolve. On the drive home, I replayed Andrea's words. A woman, a colleague, a laugh too loud, too eager, the hotel booking, the puzzle pieces clicked together, forming a picture I had tried not to see. When I pulled into the driveway, Daniel's car wasn't there. The house felt empty, but not in the comforting way. More like a vacuum. I set the diploma on the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began searching. Emails, schedules, credit card statements. The trail wasn't neat, but it was there, small charges, subtle shifts. A dinner receipt on a night he claimed he was at the office. A hotel loyalty point balance that didn't match our family trips. Each clue was a crack in the mirror of the life I thought I had, and I was done pretending not to see. That night, as I prepared dinner for Emily and Josh, I caught myself staring at them. Josh asked, "What's for dinner, Mom? Pasta?" I answered automatically. Emily rolled her eyes. Again, I almost laughed at the normalcy of it. They had no idea their father's world, and theirs was about to tilt. I had no intention of shielding them forever. But for now, I needed them unaware, because the next move had to be mine. After they went upstairs, I sat at the table, notebook open. I began writing. Not a diary. A plan. Job applications. Separate bank account. Lawyer consultation. Evidence. Each word steadied me. Each bullet point was a step away from invisibility. At the bottom of the page, I wrote seeds. Plant them quietly. Let them grow. The house was silent when Daniel finally came home. He moved through the kitchen like a ghost, dropping his keys on the counter. Hey, he said casually, as though the world hadn't shifted. Kids in bed? Yes. He opened the fridge, grabbed a beer. Busy day. You? I met his eyes for the first time in years without flinching. Very busy. He didn't notice the weight in my voice. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. Either way, it didn't matter. Because while he sipped his beer, I had already started to dismantle the foundation he thought was solid. Later, as I lay in bed, the glow of my phone lit the darkness. A new message. From Rachel, HR manager. Subject: Let's set up a time to talk. I smiled faintly. The seeds had been planted, and Daniel had no idea a garden of consequences was already beginning to grow beneath his feet. The morning sun slanted through the blinds, striping my kitchen table with lines of light. The diploma still sat there, but this time I didn't look at it with despair. I looked at it like a compass. It wasn't just proof anymore, it was a key. And I needed someone who could help me figure out where it fit. The email from Rachel, the HR manager Andrea had connected me with, glowed on my phone screen. I had reread it 3 times before daring to reply. Claire, congratulations again. Andrea speaks highly of you. I'd be happy to set up a call this week. I typed back quickly, my hands steadier than I expected. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. When I pressed send, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting, I was acting. That afternoon, I drove across town to meet someone else, someone I hadn't seen in over a decade. Vivian. She had been more than a friend back when our kids were small. We'd met in a library playgroup, bonding over sippy cups and story time. She was the kind of woman who listened deeply, who remembered little details. But somewhere along the way, life had pulled us apart. Still, I remembered her words once after Daniel had left me stranded at a birthday party with 2 crying toddlers. She had leaned in and whispered, "Claire, don't ever forget you're stronger than he lets you think." Those words had lingered in me like an ember. So now, years later, I found myself parking outside her small law office downtown. The plaque on the door read, "Vivian Harris, Attorney at Law." I almost laughed at the coincidence. But maybe it wasn't coincidence at all. Maybe it was time. When I stepped inside, she looked up from behind a desk piled with folders. Her hair was streaked with gray now, but her smile was the same. "Claire," she said, standing quickly. "Yes," I breathed, almost relieved. She hugged me, the kind of hug that steadies your spine. "Sit," she urged. "Tell me everything." And I did. The graduation, the empty chairs, the catering bill, the hotel booking. Her face stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened like a blade. "Claire," she said finally, "you've been living in shadows for too long." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I don't even know where to start." Vivian leaned back, folding her hands. "You start with knowledge, and I can help you with that." The pacing slowed here, measured, deliberate, as she pulled out a legal pad. First, she said, "Separate your finances." Quietly. "Every dollar you earn, every cent you save, put it somewhere he can't touch." I nodded, scribbling notes like a student again. Second, she continued, "Document everything. Bank statements, receipts, emails, especially if he's spending marital funds on someone else." The words landed heavy. Someone else. I swallowed hard. "You think there's—" She didn't flinch. "Claire, men don't book hotel rooms during family milestones for business." Silence filled the room, heavy but true. Then came the twist. Vivian leaned closer. "And third, if you decide to act, you'll need representation. Luckily, family law is what I do, and I don't lose cases." I stared at her. The woman I had once traded snack recipes with, now a lawyer with fire in her eyes. "You'd help me?" I asked quietly. Her answer was immediate. "Of course. You don't owe him silence. You owe yourself freedom." The words cracked something open in me. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. We talked for another hour. She explained things in plain English: custody rights, asset division, legal separation. It was overwhelming, but in a strangely empowering way. Because knowledge wasn't just power, it was oxygen. By the end, I felt less like a drowning woman, and more like someone who had finally found the shoreline. As I left, she clasped my hand. "Claire," she said softly, "don't wait for the perfect moment. Just start. Quietly, steadily. Seeds grow even in silence." Her words echoed Andrea's and Dr. Lewis's before her. Seeds, leverage, build. The metaphors were becoming a chorus, and I was finally learning the song. That evening, back at home, Daniel strutted into the kitchen. Long day, he asked casually, grabbing a beer. I kept my voice level. Productive, he smirked. Doing what, shopping? I looked at him for a long moment, then simply said, learning. He blinked, caught off guard, but recovered quickly. Good for you, he muttered, already scrolling on his phone. He had no idea. After dinner, Emily asked me to help her with a school essay. Normally, I would have sat down, poured my whole heart into guiding her. But tonight, something shifted. I helped but briefly. Then I excused myself, retreating upstairs. Because I realized for too long I had poured every ounce of myself into others and left nothing for me. That was changing. In my room, I spread the notes Vivian had given me across the bed. I opened a new notebook and began again. Savings account. Evidence folder. Job application with Rachel's contact. Meeting with Vivian next week. The list felt like bricks stacking into a wall, not a wall trapping me, but one protecting me. As I wrote, I remembered Vivian's hug, Andrea's encouragement, Dr. Lewis's email. Each ally was a lantern in the dark, and for the first time, the shadows around me didn't feel endless. They felt temporary. At midnight, I closed the notebook, slid it under my pillow, and lay back. The house was quiet. But this time, silence didn't feel like absence. It felt like a pause before music. And in that silence, I whispered to myself, not alone anymore. Not ever again. The first time I slid the small digital recorder into my purse, I felt like a criminal. It was the same recorder I had once used years ago, dictating notes for night classes in the car while waiting for Emily at soccer practice. Back then, it was just a tool for learning. Now it was something else entirely. A weapon. Vivian's words replayed in my head. Document everything. Every receipt, every word, every silence that matters. So I began. That evening, Daniel came home late again. His tie hung loose, his phone glued to his hand. Long day, I asked casually, setting my phone recording on the counter. Busy, he muttered, pulling a beer from the fridge. Clients, you know. I stirred the pasta sauce slowly, the spoon scraping the pot. Clients at the Marriott. His eyes flicked up. What? I shrugged. Just wondering. He froze for half a second too long before laughing it off. You read too much into things, Claire. The recorder in my purse caught every syllable. Later in the quiet of my room, I replayed the clip. His hesitation was clear, his deflection even clearer. I labeled the file June 14th, Marriott. One piece of evidence, one brick in a wall. The pacing of my life shifted. No longer a blur of chores and obligations, it became a sequence of deliberate moves. Every morning, check bank accounts, save PDFs. Every evening, slip receipts into a folder marked household. Every night, write notes in the notebook hidden beneath my pillow. At first, it felt tedious, but soon it became ritual. And ritual became power. Vivian called one afternoon. How's the documentation going? Meticulous, I answered. I've got folders on folders, she chuckled. That's how we win, Claire. Not with shouting. With paper. Paper never forgets. Her words steadied me. Then came the twist. One evening, as I was sorting through Daniel's discarded mail, I found an envelope addressed to him from a financial institution I didn't recognize. Curiosity prickled. I slipped it into my apron pocket, waited until the house was quiet, then opened it. Inside, a statement. A credit card in his name only. Charges ran down the page like a confession. Jewelry stores, restaurants, hotel bars, and one line item that made my breath catch: Luxe Boutique. $1 or $250. I had once begged him to let me replace our broken washing machine. He had said we couldn't afford it, but apparently he could afford this. I scanned the statement into my laptop, saving it under a new folder, Hidden Accounts. Then I sat back staring at the glow of the screen. The Claire of a year ago would have confronted him immediately, tears brimming, voice shaking. But not this Claire. This Claire collected. This Claire waited. This Claire prepared. The next day, Vivian and I met again. She flipped through the copies I handed her, nodding. This is good. This is very good. I leaned forward. How much will it take for this to matter in court? She looked me dead in the eye. Claire, you already have enough to start. But the more you gather, the stronger you are. Her words sank in. Stronger. For years I had been told I was weak, invisible, replaceable. Now every receipt, every file, every note was proof of the opposite. That night, Daniel sat at the table scrolling on his phone. I placed a plate of dinner in front of him. He glanced up, smirked. You're quiet these days. I smiled faintly. Just learning. The silence after that was delicious. He didn't know what I meant, but I did. And the recorder in my purse caught it all. As the weeks passed, my system grew. I bought a small external hard drive encrypted, labeled it Family Photos. Inside, instead of pictures, it held PDFs of bank statements, emails, scanned receipts. I bought a manila folder, slipped handwritten notes inside. Label conversations. I even began recording myself voice memos at night, summarizing what I had seen and heard that day. At first, my voice sounded foreign on playback, but soon it sounded strong. This is Claire Thompson, one memo began. Today, Daniel claimed he worked late, but I found a charge for dinner at Le Jardin. Noted, evidence, not emotion. Then came another twist. One evening, I left my recorder running on the kitchen counter while I stepped out to check the mail. When I returned, I caught Daniel's voice drifting from the living room. She doesn't suspect a thing. A pause. Then laughter, low, intimate. I crept closer. His phone pressed to his ear, his tone dripping with charm. Soon he said, "Trust me, it's all under control." My pulse roared in my ears, but I kept my steps silent. The recorder blinked red, catching every word. That night, I replayed the clip in bed, headphones tucked beneath the covers. She doesn't suspect a thing, but I did. And now I had proof. I labeled the file June 28th, phone call. And then, almost without meaning to, I whispered aloud, "Checkmate, Daniel." Not yet, but soon. The pacing of my plan evened out, steady, deliberate. No frantic energy, no rash moves. I was building a fortress, brick by brick, file by file. Every time Daniel smirked, every time he dismissed me, every time he underestimated me, it only added another stone. One evening, Emily asked me, "Mom, why are you always on your laptop lately?" I looked at her, my daughter who had once repeated Daniel's words to me like scripture. "Because I'm learning how to protect us," I said softly. She blinked, confused, but I didn't elaborate. Someday she'd understand. At night, when the house was quiet, I sometimes stared at the folders spread across my desk. They didn't look like much, just paper files, a few gigabytes of data. But to me, they were swords and shields, invisible weapons, and I was finally learning how to use them. The last entry I recorded that month was simple. This is Claire Thompson. Today I opened a separate savings account. Balance $500. Small, but it's mine. Only mine. I paused, then added, "This is how freedom begins." I clicked off the recorder. The red light died. The room went dark. And I knew with a certainty that pulsed through my veins, the war hadn't started yet. But the arsenal was ready. The call came on a Thursday morning. I was in the kitchen pouring coffee when Daniel's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Claire," he barked from the living room. "What the hell did you do?" The mug almost slipped from my hand. I walked slowly, deliberately into the room. He was standing there, phone in one hand, the other clenched into a fist. His face was red, the vein in his temple pulsing. I tilted my head. "Good morning to you, too." "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "The bank just froze our joint account. My card was declined at the gas station. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" Inside, I smiled. Outside, I only sipped my coffee. Hook delivered. The first crack had appeared. I spoke with them yesterday, I said calmly. Standard review, nothing unusual. His eyes narrowed. Don't lie to me. I set the mug down on the table with a soft clink. I didn't lie. I just learned how to ask the right questions. Silence stretched. The kind of silence that swells louder than shouting. The pacing quickened. His breathing grew shallow. He jabbed his finger toward me. You're trying to make me look bad. Is that it? To embarrass me? I met his gaze steadily. No, Daniel. You do that all on your own. For a moment, he actually flinched. Just slightly. But I caught it. The recorder in my purse caught it too. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. Hello? A man's voice. Mrs. Thompson? This is Brad from Ridgeway Properties. We're calling to confirm that we won't be moving forward with the contract Daniel submitted. Given the discrepancies, I blinked. I'm sorry. He hesitated. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of anything but word travels. We heard some things. Figured you'd want to know. When he hung up, I sat in the quiet kitchen, my heart thudding. The dominoes were starting to wobble. That evening, Daniel stormed in earlier than usual. He slammed his briefcase onto the counter. You've been talking, he accused. I didn't look up from chopping vegetables. About what? You know damn well. Don't act innocent. I wiped the knife on a towel, turned to face him. Daniel, if your business can't survive people asking questions, maybe the problem isn't me. He sneered. You think you're clever. You think your little diploma makes you better than me? I let the silence answer. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. You don't get it, do you? Everything I do, it's to keep up appearances, to make sure this family looks good. And you, he pointed at me, voice cracking. You're jeopardizing that. There it was, the truth slipping out. It was never about love, never about partnership. It was about appearances, his image. I filed the words away in memory, another weapon for later. The pacing of the evening was jagged, every movement sharp. He ate in silence, slamming his fork against the plate. Emily and Josh shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. I kept my voice steady, asked about their day, smiled when Emily showed me her homework, pretended nothing was amiss. But beneath the calm, the air crackled with tension. Daniel was unraveling, and I was just beginning. Later that night, the phone rang again. It was Vivian. Claire, she said briskly, did something happen today? Yes, I replied. The bank. And a call from Ridgeway Properties. She exhaled sharply. Good. That means pressure is working. Don't engage too much. Just collect. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. Understood. Remember, she added, first cracks are the most dangerous. He'll lash out. Stay steady. Steady, I repeated. The next morning, Daniel confronted me again. This time over breakfast. My clients are calling Claire. They're asking questions. Did you say something? I buttered toast slowly. If they're asking questions, maybe they're seeing something you didn't want them to. He slammed his fist onto the table, rattling the silverware. You're going to ruin everything. I looked at him, then down at the toast, then back at him. I'm not ruining anything, Daniel. I'm revealing it. Silence followed. Heavy. Emily pushed her chair back, muttering that she was late for school. Josh followed quickly. And just like that, it was only us. He leaned across the table, voice low, almost a growl. Whatever game you think you're playing, end it. Now. I sipped my coffee unfazed. Games are for children. I prefer the truth. He stared at me for a long time, eyes narrowing, mouth twitching as though he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Finally he stood, grabbed his keys, and left without another word. The sound of the door slamming echoed like a gunshot. I exhaled slowly, and then very quietly I smiled. The pacing softened after he left. The house felt lighter, the silence less oppressive. I gathered the dishes, rinsed them, and placed them in the sink. Simple, steady movements. Then I retrieved the recorder from my purse, replaying the morning's exchange. You're going to ruin everything. I'm not ruining anything, Daniel. I'm revealing it. I closed my eyes, listening to the cadence of my own voice. Calm, cold, powerful. That evening, I filed the recording, labeled it neatly, then slipped the folder back into its hiding place. As I closed the drawer, I whispered to myself, first strike landed. The lights in the kitchen dimmed as the sun set. Outside, the cicadas sang their rhythms, steady, relentless. Inside, I pressed my palms against the cool countertop, grounding myself. The cracks had begun to spread, and I was ready for the whole mirror to shatter. It started with a whisper. I was standing in line at the grocery store when two women behind me began talking. I wasn't paying attention until I heard Daniel's name. You hear about Thompson Ridgeway pulled out, and now Horizon Group's reconsidering too. Really, I thought he was untouchable. Apparently not. Word is, money issues, personal problems. I didn't turn around. I just placed my items on the conveyor belt, my pulse steady, almost calm. The storm had started to ripple outward. That evening, Daniel came home later than ever. His shoulders were tense, his tie loose. He didn't even take off his shoes, just dropped onto the couch and rubbed his temples. I set down a glass of water. Long day. He shot me a look. Don't. I tilted my head. Don't. What? Don't act like you don't know. I sat across from him, folding my hands in my lap. Then maybe you should tell me. He exhaled harshly. Clients are pulling back. Someone's been spreading rumors. Rumors, I repeated softly, tasting the word. His eyes narrowed. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I let the silence hang between us, heavy and unbroken. Finally, I stood. Dinner's on the stove, and I left him there, drowning in his own suspicions. The pacing of my days quickened. Everywhere I went, I caught fragments. At the pharmacy, Thompson's got issues. Did you see the statement? At the coffee shop. His wife, she's the one with the degree now, right? At church, hushed voices, glances that flickered between pity and curiosity. The mirror of perfection Daniel had polished for years was cracking, and people were noticing. Then came the twist. I was walking back from the mailbox when I saw Mrs. Carter, our neighbor across the street. She'd always been polite, but distant, the kind of woman who waved from her porch but never lingered for conversation. That day she crossed the street. Claire, she said softly, glancing around. Do you have a moment? I nodded, surprised. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. I don't know what's going on between you and Daniel, but I thought you should know I saw him a few weeks ago, at the Lakeside Hotel. He wasn't alone. My chest tightened, though I kept my expression neutral. Thank you for telling me. She placed a hand on my arm. I didn't want to interfere, but you deserve to know. For years she had remained neutral. Now she was choosing sides, and it wasn't his. That night, Daniel paced the kitchen like a caged animal. You think you're so clever? He spat. But you don't realize you're dragging everyone down with you. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. If the truth drags you down, maybe you were never standing that tall to begin with. His jaw clenched. I built this life. No, Daniel, I said quietly. You built a facade. The next day, I met Andrea for coffee again. She slid into the booth, eyes bright with news. Claire, you wouldn't believe the calls I've been getting. People asking about Daniel, about you. Your name's coming up in a good way. They're impressed you finished your degree even with everything going on. I blinked, stunned. Impressed? She nodded. They see you as resilient, strong, not just his wife, but yourself. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The identity I had fought for so long, the one always dismissed, was finally being seen. The pacing slowed here, letting me breathe. I walked home afterward with a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Pride, fear, resolve. When I opened the door, Daniel was on the phone, his voice sharp. I don't care what you heard. We're fine. Everything's under control. He hung up and glared at me. This is your fault. I set my bag down calmly. Funny. I don't remember swiping your card at the Lakeside Hotel. His face blanched just for a moment. Then he recovered, snarling, "Careful, Claire." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That evening, the house felt tense, brittle. Emily and Josh sat at the table, quiet. They sensed it too. Emily finally spoke. "Dad, is everything okay?" Daniel forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. Just work stress." But the words rang hollow. Even she knew. Josh looked at me, then back at his father, uncertainty in his young eyes. For the first time, I thought, maybe they're starting to see him too. Later, in the stillness of my room, I replayed the day's events, the whispers, Mrs. Carter's confession, Andrea's encouragement, Daniel's unraveling. The storm was building, and I was no longer bracing against it. I was steering it. At midnight, I sat at my desk, the glow of the lamp casting long shadows. I opened my notebook and wrote 3 words in bold letters. "The storm is coming." I repeated it page after page. "The storm is coming. The storm is coming." Each repetition steadied me like waves against the shore. Because when the storm finally broke, I wanted to be the one standing in the calm that followed. The clock on my nightstand ticked past 1 a.m. I closed the notebook, slid it into the drawer, and turned off the lamp. The room sank into darkness, but my mind was lit with clarity. Down the hall, the old grandfather clock struck once, twice. Each chime sounded like a countdown. The storm was closer now, and soon there would be no turning back. It didn't happen gradually. It happened all at once. One morning, the neighborhood group chat buzzed with messages I wasn't supposed to see, but did screenshots forwarded by Andrea. Whispers passed from one person to the next. "Did you hear about Daniel Thompson contracts falling apart? Hotel bills, credit lines frozen." By noon, it wasn't whispers anymore. It was shouts. Daniel's name was on everyone's lips, not with admiration, but with suspicion. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. It was Vivian. "Claire," she said briskly, "it's happening. I just got word 3 clients withdrew. He's hemorrhaging business." I closed my eyes. "Already, yes. And listen, he'll try to pin this on you. Don't take the bait. Stay steady, steady." The word had become my anchor. By afternoon, the storm had fully broken. I watched from the front window as Daniel pulled into the driveway. His car door slammed. He stalked up the path, tie askew, face pale but furious. When he burst through the door, the air seemed to shift with him. "Claire," he shouted. "What have you done?" I folded the towel in my hands, set it neatly on the stack. Then I looked at him. "Me." His voice cracked. "They're pulling out. Every single one. Do you know how many calls I've had today?" I tilted my head. "No. But you look tired. Would you like some water?" The casualness made his rage falter. Just a second, but I caught it. The pacing quickened. He paced the living room like a man on fire. "You think you're clever, don't you? Sitting here smiling while everything I built crumbles." I didn't move. "I'm not smiling." "You planned this," he accused. I shrugged lightly. "Or maybe lies eventually collapse on their own." He froze, searching my face. "Do you realize what's happening? I could lose everything." His words spilled out too fast, too frantic, and for the first time I realized he wasn't angry. He was afraid. Then came the twist. He dropped into the armchair, shoulders slumped, eyes darting. His voice softened, almost pleading. "Claire, I need your help. You can talk to people. Tell them it's not true. That we're fine, that you stand by me." I blinked slowly. "You want me to fix your mess?" His hands trembled. "Please, just this once. You know I can't." I cut him off, my voice colder than ice. "Daniel, I stood by you for 20 years, and you left me alone on the most important day of my life. Do you remember that? The empty chairs?" He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "You'll get over it," he whispered, echoing his old cruelty. But this time it sounded broken, hollow. I leaned forward. "No, Daniel, I already did. That's why I'm still standing and you're the one collapsing. The silence that followed was deafening. He tried to speak again, but the words tangled. His image, his armor, everything he had built it was cracking in front of me, and I just watched. Later that evening, the chaos spilled beyond our walls. My phone buzzed nonstop, Andrea forwarding articles, Vivian confirming that his accounts were being audited, Mrs. Carter's daughter texting me screenshots of threads where people speculated about his downfall. Everywhere I looked, the mirror he'd held up to the world was shattering. At dinner, Emily and Josh sat quietly. Emily finally asked Mom, "What's going on with Dad?" Daniel stabbed at his food, jaw clenched. "Nothing. Just rumors." Josh looked at me wide-eyed. "But people at school said you're the strong one, that you finished college even when no one believed in you." The fork slipped from Daniel's hand. I smiled gently at my son. "That part's true." After dinner, Daniel cornered me in the hallway. "You're turning them against me," he hissed. "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself." He slammed his hand against the wall beside me. "If you destroy me, you destroy us all." I met his eyes steadily. "There is no us anymore." His hand dropped, his face paling. The pacing spiked one last time that night. At 10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Hard, urgent. I opened it to find Daniel's business partner Brad standing there, face grim. "Claire," he said, glancing past me at Daniel, who hovered in the background. "I just came to say it's over. We can't afford to go down with you." He handed Daniel a folder, then turned and walked away. Daniel flipped it open, scanned the papers, and crumpled them in his fists. His empire gone. He turned to me, then eyes wild. "Do you see what you've done?" he demanded. I stepped closer, voice low but steady. "No, Daniel. Do you see what you did?" For the first time, he had no reply. When he finally stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door, I stayed in the quiet living room. The lamp cast a warm glow over the scattered papers, the folded laundry, the life that was still intact mine. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against the windows like a clock counting down. The storm had broken, and tomorrow the reckoning would come. The rain hadn't stopped all night. By morning, the gutters overflowed, water rushing down the driveway like a river washing everything away. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee steaming in my hands, watching the storm. It felt symbolic, like the world itself was cleansing, stripping, tearing down the weak branches that had held too long. Behind me, the house was silent. Too silent. Daniel hadn't come downstairs yet, but I knew he would. The storm outside wasn't the only one that had broken. When the clock struck 9, I heard heavy footsteps on the stairs, slow dragging, each one carrying the weight of collapse. Daniel entered the kitchen, his face drawn, eyes bloodshot. His tie was gone, his shirt wrinkled, the image he had so carefully maintained shredded. He looked at me like a man drowning looks at the shore. "Claire," he said hoarsely, "we need to talk." I turned, leaned against the counter, and waited. He sat down heavily at the table, running his hands through his hair. "Everything's falling apart. The business, the contracts. Even the kids look at me differently now." I said nothing. His eyes darted up, searching my face. "But you can fix this. You've always fixed things. Say something. Tell them it's all lies. Tell them we're still strong. Please." I let the silence stretch until it was unbearable. Then I spoke. "You don't want the truth, Daniel. You want a mask, and I'm done wearing one for you." The pacing quickened as he shifted, voice rising. "You think you're better than me now? Just because you've got a piece of paper with your name on it?" I met his gaze, steady. "Not better, just free." His jaw worked, fury and desperation colliding. "Claire, if you do this, if you walk away, you'll destroy this family." I set my cup down carefully. "Daniel, you destroyed it the moment you chose appearances over presence, lies over loyalty, yourself over us." His face twisted, but I didn't stop. "You left me alone at my graduation. You humiliated me, used me, erased me. and you expected me to thank you for the privilege. My voice was calm, but it cut sharper than any scream. He lunged forward, gripping the edge of the table. I can change. Can you? I asked softly. I'll stop. I'll make it right. His voice cracked, a man begging not for forgiveness, but for survival. And there it was, the twist. Daniel Thompson, the man who had controlled every narrative, now begging me for mercy. I stepped closer, my shadow falling across him. You want me to save you, Daniel, but you never once thought about saving me. He swallowed hard. You never even showed up. The words hung between us, heavy as the storm outside. Then slowly, I placed a cream-colored envelope on the table. He stared at it like it was a snake. What's that? Papers, I said simply. His hand trembled as he opened it, scanning the contents. His face drained of color. Divorce, he whispered. Freedom, I corrected. The pacing slowed, deliberate, as silence filled the kitchen. Only the rain tapped against the glass, steady like applause. Daniel looked up at me, eyes glistening. You're really going to do this? Yes. His voice broke. After everything I gave you, I almost laughed. You didn't give, Daniel. You took. You took my time, my dreams, my voice. And now I'm taking them back. He sank into the chair, broken. For the first time, I saw him not as a giant looming over me, but as a man, small, fragile, drowning in the mess he made. I'm sorry, he whispered. For what it's worth. I nodded slowly. It's worth nothing. But I'll remember you said it. I turned, walked to the window. The rain had slowed drops, clinging to the glass like tiny mirrors. In them, I saw myself, not the woman erased by silence, but the woman who had survived it. Behind me, Daniel's voice cracked again. Claire, what do I do now? I didn't turn. Learn. Like I did. The pacing shifted one last time, slower, deeper, steady as resolution. I gathered my bag, slid the diploma inside, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, I paused, looked back once. You'll get exactly what you deserve, Daniel. And so will I. Then I opened the door. The morning light spilled across me, cool and sharp, washing the kitchen in gold. Behind me, the house was silent. Ahead of me, the world was wide open. I stepped outside. The storm had cleared the air fresh, the sky a pale blue stretching endlessly above. The sound of my footsteps on the wet driveway was the only music I needed. With each step, I felt lighter, stronger, whole. The storm was over, and I was still standing. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the left.